my takeaway from this rather inclusive session, not just because of the gender balance, which we achieved, yay, but also because of the perspectives from global all the way down to national. My takeaway is that even though the scope and the extent of the challenge of meeting our SDG objectives and goals is quite daunting, we can see signs of progress in terms of building these inclusive partnerships. Hearing from the experiences of our colleagues, both at country level, but also at regional and from our global perspective, we see that as a culture, this is getting traction. And there are incentives, both from policy setting perspective, but also from financing perspective, to keep us on this track.
As a member of the program committee for the UN World Data Forum, I've participated in setting up the program. Just to review, I think as she said, it's very important when we see our journey from Cape Town. I like the way that we set it as an action plan. So progress has been made. The scope of the work that we need to do is quite huge, and we need to be a little bit ambitious, but we need to also self-reflect to say, are we moving at the right space, or we should maybe accelerate? So our panel actually demonstrated that if you bring people from different organizations to share what they are doing, one, we acknowledge that there's progress made. Two, we also acknowledge that there's a long way to go. And that's why we believe that we need to innovate, we need to build partnership, maybe a little bit different, so that inclusivity is not what I was saying in the panel, that is something that's like an add-on, but it's something that should be taken into consideration at the design phase, because we believe as a data community that we shouldn't leave no one behind. We should actually make sure that everyone is included in everything that we are doing.
I think it's not getting distracted by all sorts of impediments and barriers that are out there, and sticking to our mission and our vision. So in our community, the community of Earth observation, our mission is pretty clear. We are here to promote equitable access to information about the environment as digital public good, so that it is available to decision makers to make informed decisions. We talked about SDGs being a very complex, interconnected web, where they interact in a way where if you don't make an informed decision, you can actually risk progress and in fact do harm where you actually mean to do well. So our community is putting together resources, human, financial, technological, to create those digital public goods, to flesh out and illuminate those interdependencies so that decisions can be made in an informed way. We here in this meeting, we work with statistical community, geospatial community, on finding pathways to integrating different types of data, because every type of data brings its own competitive advantage, so to speak. And the solution, the beauty of a good solution is when it leverages all types of data. So our mission is that, and we're working towards achieving it through building the relationships with the different types of communities in that data ecosystem, and promoting the culture of collaboration and employing practices that may not be customary to them and may not be their go-to traditional approaches, but by showing the advantage of utilizing remote sensing, satellite data, how it can help them to do things faster and at less cost, and demonstrating how it can be done. We hope to promote the uptake of the information that we provide.
I will start by saying that government plays a key role in moving forward this agenda. But National Office of Statistics, most of them in the region I'm working in, were not prepared at the time they were set up for the digital revolution. They have a mandate to collect, analyze, and disseminate data. Now, we all taken by the surprise that technology actually pushed the boundaries to say data is not only statistics, that is very well structured. We're talking about big data with social media coming on board, mobile penetration. The challenge that I see is for many institutions not to be prepared. So that's one. Some do not have infrastructure. And we also might also put into consideration the political will for people to move forward. But we are learning from the pandemic that we came from that we don't have a choice. We need to innovate. We need to build partnership so that we serve our population better, because we need to make informed decisions to advance the development of these different countries. So yes, Africa is complex, 54 countries. There are framework organizations that provide them with a platform to discuss these kind of issues. But one needs to appreciate that context matters, and people are working with very, very specific context. They have their own priorities. So yes, that's what I've seen. And I'm coming from the academic and research institutions. Usually we're in a better position where we can bring together or maybe try to facilitate the conversation between the government, the private sector, and civil society, because most of the time people are willing to share data, for example, for research, because they know that the research output can be used to really advance those kind of conversations in terms of policy development. Yes, but challenges differ from across the world. Now, when I compare the continent with the rest of the world, people can look at it from global south and global north. We have a long way to go. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. We need to accelerate this kind of innovation and partnership so that we can achieve our objective quicker.
So at GEO, we convene partners around proposition that translates into an actual program or initiative or project that is based on partnerships. And as we go about convening by way of inviting partners from the entirety of the value chain, from data providers, technology providers, the science community, all the way down to those users, as we refer to them, the downstream sort of users who actually operationalize the insights, the information that we provide. Because otherwise, if we truncate that somewhere midway, we're just going to end up with a group of data scientists, data providers who just love to do what they do, but the solution is not necessarily grounded in reality, in actual application and use. So it's important for us to make sure that we are developing things that are fit for purpose, that are demand-driven. And in doing this, we know that once this thing is done, it will actually have users ready to test it out, ready to take it on the road. And so that does accelerate the process of deploying the solutions into that use space.
So I will start by saying that the reason we need to be flexible is because an ideal world is a world where all governments have all the resources they need, all the skills that they need, so that they can put forward a regulatory framework and then regulate everything, and then people should play by the rule, and that's it. Unfortunately, we're not living in that world. And again, from the continent that I'm coming from, different countries are at different stages in terms of their own development, economic development. So the one thing that is important for those kind of relationships is not to show muscles. Muscle can be money, we're bringing money, we're doing ABCD, but it's really to have a common ground. And I believe that in any business that is operating in any country serve people, and that's key. And people have rights. So I made a statement in our panel that people shouldn't be seen as just heads count or numbers. They have rights, and we need to protect their rights. and they are citizens of countries. And the government has a mandate to ensure that we're playing by the rules. Now, the question is that sometimes there's kind of some trade-off. Would you allow private companies to really set their business in the environment where we don't have a regulation? So that's a question. It's a big question, because if government does not have what they call the capacity to put together those kind of policy, we shouldn't stop things from happening, because there's a lot of things that we need to do. Now, for the private company, there's nothing wrong about playing by the rule. There's nothing wrong about aligning your business with sustainable development goal while doing your business. I don't think that they are contradictory. Mm-hmm. I want to give you an example of financial inclusion. So a bank can work around a model where they design credit scoring from very specific population, like smallholder farmers. In the African context, it makes a lot of sense to include them in your financial service. Mm-hmm. But for that, you need to actually collect data and things like that. The government does not have the resources to collect data at that level, while they need to strengthen the National Statistics Office. So we need to ensure that while we actually building this kind of partnership, we have a common purpose. And we don't really hide in the way we do business, because government need to set the rule. And I will advise those kind of partnerships to be as inclusive as possible, to ensure that the civil society is on board, because they mandate to actually keep the government on track, but also ensure that citizens, for example, privacy in terms of data is not abused. And then the private sector should just create an environment where they're actually developing their business. That's what I would say.
Well, one thing that's particularly dear to my heart is seeing more young people engagement. And I'd like to come here next year and see a lot more young people involved in these national or regional or even global processes. Here at Group on Earth Observations, we are thinking of constructing programs that will involve young people in collecting data, or communicating the value of data, or the impact from having that data. That's really my biggest interest.
For me, I think I will borrow what she mentioned at the beginning in terms of sign of impact and progress. I think I just listened to the presentation to say, in 7 years, we're going to reach 2030. We know as a fact that not all countries will tick the box to say sustainable development goals achieved. I really want to see a way for us to self-reflect and see, we know where we're going, but I don't know whether we know exactly where we are. And do a little bit of gap analysis to say, can you come out with a mapping exercise and be honest for countries to self-reflect and come out with, again, a strategy is good, but an action plan which has an M&E framework is better, so that you set your goals that are realistic, so that when we meet next year, maybe we're going to revisit the agenda. And as part of the agenda, I would love to get a sense of reflection per country, per community, to say, where are we? And let's be honest about it. We are in the midway for the Sustainable Development Goals. I think from this learning, we as a community will acknowledge that there are maybe things that we need to do differently. We said this in Bern, we said this in Dubai. We need to be a little bit ambitious when we say we want to do things differently. Today we're talking about innovation and partnership for inclusive data. What it means in concrete terms, in terms of what did you achieve for this. And I really wanted to have that kind of framework. It's not like a blame and shame game, but it's about acknowledging that country might be at different stage, and maybe some country need more support so that we help them accelerate their transformation. So that's what I wanted to do. And another thing I wanted to see is there's a lot of report out there. I think country report to maybe UN and things like that. I really wanted to also be able to ask the question of the quality of those reports, so that we have some standard and templates where we can have like a way to mirror everyone to say this is what we have. And those kind of things that I would love to see more while we set the agenda for next year. But I really don't want to get away the excitement of being here in China. It was quite important. Every single time we have a UN World Data Forum, it seems like we are pushing the expectation higher. So I will expect Colombia to take it a little bit further as we move forward. And I think we're going to do that.